Okay, so the feature that we have all been waiting for is finally going to come into Divi 5. And this is going to change the way we build our layouts, the way we build our pages, and it's going to unlock basically any layout you want to build. You'll be able to build it now in Divi. Now, I just wanted to go over it, and I kind of want to show what designing in Divi is like now and how that's going to change. And then I also want to compare it to different layouts. So let's just get started. So Divi 5 sneak peek, they're calling this nested rows. I understand this is something that Elegant Themes does all the time. So they will have a new feature, and for some reason they like to just give it a name that is just like, okay, well, this is basically Flexbox, right? Like basically what you're doing is you're taking one element and you're lining it up side by side with another element. It's basically Flexbox, okay? But Elegant Themes loves their they love their naming conventions. They love to just, I guess, be unique with their naming. But it's let's just dive in. So I'm here to give you a sneak peek at a feature coming soon to Divi 5. With Divi 5's foundation complete, okay, we already read on this. So last week we went over advanced units. Those are pretty good, pretty darn good. Those are amazing, and I'm glad those are in Divi right now. And the team involved is already working on their next project, nested rows. Rows inside of rows. The idea is simple, but an important first step in creating more flexible layout system for Divi 5. Okay, rows inside of rows, it's basically Flexbox, okay? It's Flexbox. When you can line two things up on the same axis, it for me you're just saying Flexbox. So Divi 5 flexibility. So in Divi 4, there's a limitation regarding the nestability of elements. The old shortcode based framework couldn't handle it, but this is no longer true in Divi 5. We built Divi 5 to be incredibly flexible, which opens up many opportunities for new features. Fortunately, that means that nested rows will fall right into place. And when they announced Flexbox for the first time, I was actually wondering how they were going to do it because, and maybe this is something that I will do in this video, I'm going to go over some of the ways that different builders do Flexbox and kind of what I was confused about. So soon you'll be able to add rows inside of rows, unlocking new layout structures when you click the plus button inside a column. You won't you won't limit it to adding modules, okay? You won't limit it to adding modules. You can add rows too. Okay, well, that's pretty cool. Nested rows, that explains a lot. That's the feature. Simple in its explanation before reaching in its implications. And one thing that I'm going to wonder here is when you add rows, there's default padding that Divi already adds. I'm wondering if there will be a way to turn it off. Right now, you can code it into a child theme, but I just wish there was a way natively to where you could just turn off all the padding. Oh, Arc wants me to update. Turn off all the padding and all the stuff that they add, but I guess I digress. So with the ability to nest rows, you won't be limited to Divi's core set of row structures. You'll be able to craft new layouts that previously weren't possible with Divi's specialty sections, which are limited in scope. And this is actually good that the team is actually admitting, hey, like with the older version of Divi, you couldn't build everything, right? When I was working with Divi as my job, I'm still doing that. My boss would just tell me, oh, you just need to, it's a skill issue, right? Like you can't build this layout because like you have to figure out how to build it. And I'm like, no, there's literally limitations to what you can build right now in Divi. Doing it in, I guess, in the realm of best practices. Like there's a lot of cool looking layouts that I've seen on the internet, especially from like companies like Divi Pixel, where like you can build some amazing layouts in Divi, but the amount of just hacking you have to do, adding margin here, and I'm gonna go over that, like all the weird things you have to do to make this work in Divi. It's just like there should just be an easier solution, and this this update here is going to be the update that basically, I think with this update right here, just the fact that we're getting Flexbox is kind of giving me the feeling that Elegant Themes might be able to compete with the likes of Elementor again. Because right now, I'm starting up my own projects and doing kind of a web agency type of thing where I'm building websites for people. And I absolutely cannot use Divi for that. I just can't, because there's layouts that I need, things that I need to do that Divi just cannot do yet. And it's like, I'm not going to cut corners and do things the wrong way to use a builder. I would rather a builder do it the right way from the box. And this is going to be a huge update for Divi. So I don't have to read this. We'll just kind of look at what's happening here. So basically, this is really simple. So like, if we think about this in terms of web development, right? Let's just take a step back from page builders and just, so what are we looking at here? So this section here would pretty much be a div. This would be a div element. And there's another section here. This is another div. And then we have, and this is weird because one of them is a row and one of them isn't a row. If you're coding this, it would probably be two divs. And this one row right here, this very top row that I'm circling, this would have the Flexbox options. So this would have like flex align in the justify content center and the flex direction. So if you want your boxes to line up vertically or horizontally, and then flex wrap and all of those other things. And the same thing goes with grid. But this is basically going to be controlling these two sections. And that's why I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, this is weird. Like, how are they going to implement Flexbox? Like, this should also be a row, but maybe it'll just act as if it's a row anyways because it's separated from this row right here. So they're saying it's the first step. More capable layout system for Divi. A future update will introduce a new Flexbox-based grid, Flexbox controls, and the depreciation of specialty in full width sections with infinitely nestable Flexbox rows. The sky's the limit. Yeah, absolutely. The sky is the limit with this, and I'm glad the team is moving towards this. And I think this is pretty much it. Like, yeah, significant changes are coming. It's a sneak peek, and we'll have more. And then obviously, they're saying, let us know your thoughts. And my thoughts are simple. This is something that should have existed for a long time now. But better late than never. And Divi is, it's a pretty good value builder. And I'm glad to see that they're actually, they're doing the right things. And it's just cool to see now the effects that Bricks has had on the market. Like, since the release of Bricks and since the huge migration of people going to Bricks, these other page builders have had to step their game up. Like, I'll be honest here, if there wasn't such a shakeup in the market with how people are migrating to these more capable builders, I don't think companies like Elegant Themes, like Elementor, like all of these page builders, I don't think they're updating their frameworks or their website builders to introduce all of these features. And there's actually a hilarious video where the Elementor team is kind of going over why they're doing all of these updates, because Elementor is also going class based, and they made a video and they're like, why classes? And I don't know if it's their CEO or whoever is making that video. He basically just says, oh, because classes are fun. And it's like, no, you guys aren't doing this because classes are fun. You guys are doing this because you're starting to see the competition. People are switching over from these page builders that are targeted towards complete beginners, like you, basically people who don't have a clue on how to design websites. And it's like, now these companies are having to compete. Like, and I think Bricks, and this is just my theory, I think Bricks played a huge part in this, and the fact that companies have to compete. Okay, so let me just go into my portfolio website, and we're going to edit with Divi, and we're going to kind of go over something that's just essential. So if we look at the layer view here, we see that we have a section and we have a row, and then we have some columns. And each of these columns, of course, are going to have some information. We have all of this button, and then we have my picture. So I don't think right now we can have another column, right? But that just adds it to the axis of, I guess we can say this is, what is this, the x-axis? Or I don't know, just the horizontal axis, we'll just say that. So if we want to build anything advanced, and I'll just show this one simple thing, literally. So Cadence, another really capable builder, if we just go to social media theme. And this was kind of what I was going for. Okay, we'll just have to navigate there real quick so I can show what's going on here. And I said I was going to show using Flexbox with some other builders just to kind of get an idea of how other builders are doing it. So let's go to the starter templates, because there's one I was taking inspiration from, this one right here. So we'll preview it and we'll compare it to mine. So this was kind of what I was going for, right? But there is a huge limitation here. And the big limitation was this section right here, this email address section. As it stands right now, if I was to move this over like here and have this here, and I wanted these two buttons to be inlined, which is kind of different from how it's implemented here, there's no way to currently do this in Divi other than coding it. So I'll show you right here in our advanced, we have this class called btn inline. If I take it off, my buttons are no longer inline, meaning that if I just want to do something basic like line two buttons up next to each other, I literally have to go in and code that by hand. And yeah, I can just use a utility class and it works just fine. But why? Like, why do I have to go in there and do that by hand? Like, it would just be so much easier if there was a row, right? And then I could just add another row in here. And this is where they're going, right? So this would be another row. And this row could have the two column sections. And then now each column could have the button. And in the future, what they're going to do is they're going to make it to where Divi, or to where Flexbox is built into it. So now you can control it better. And I want to show this in Cadence because I think Cadence is one of my favorite builders right now. So if we edit the page, let's take a section. Let me just show this, how this would work in Cadence, right? So let's just go to the bottom here. And we're going to add a new row layout. And look, this is cool. So the row layout, it gives you different options for what you want it to be. So you have similar, it's really similar to Divi. So I just want to show the button thing. So let's say I have a button and I'm going to say this is button number 1. And then now I want to add another button. I just duplicate this, button number 2. Okay, so this already kind of did it by default, which I don't know why I did it. But now we have Flexbox options here to kind of go over how we want these buttons to work. So by default, they actually put them on the same line, and it's maybe because I put them on this axis here. But we can change the orientation. So we can say vertical, we can say back to horizontal, and we get to change this. There's no way to do this in Divi right now. Like it's 2025 and there's no way to do this in Divi. And obviously it's coming and this is really good. But the fact that there's just no way to do it is just kind of problematic at the moment. And something else that I would actually love to see come into Divi is like these options right here. So with these options, you can basically use pre-selected sizes and put them, and this works with text, it works with everything. And this makes for a much cleaner workflow. And this is something that I think if they don't end up adding in, I might actually just code this and make it available in a child theme. So I kind of wanted to go over that and how Cadence handles it because Cadence is just, it's one of my favorites right now. Cadence is pretty darn good. And it's a builder that I plan on continuing using. But yeah, right now there's just no way to do that. So this layout that I want to build like this, I have to find custom code. And another thing is like if I wanted to do very similar to this layout, bring it all the way like this, you know what's funny? I can't even add this line, right? That's what's hilarious. You see how here there's a line going down? Yeah, like how do I do that? How do I put a line next to this button right here? Like right now, like what would I do? Like, do I add another row? I could do that. I could add another row, or could I add another column? You see, like that's what I mean. Like this is so obvious to do when you understand Flexbox and grids. But when it's not built into the builder, you're stuck going around and saying, "Oh, how do I do this in Divi?" And when you have to ask yourself as a professional, "How do I do this in Divi?" you might not be using the right tool. And this is why them introducing Flexbox is a game changer. Because you shouldn't have to ask that. As somebody who understands how the web works with CSS and HTML, there's basically a universal way that most of these page builders do it. And I said I was going to do this. I want to go in and use Elementor. So funny enough, okay, I'm going to pause and I'm going to set up a local server. Okay, so now we're in Elementor, and keep in mind, I don't use Elementor. I've pretty much never used it. I've used it one time to build a project for a client, and this was like when I first started doing WordPress related things. That was more than 3 years ago. I don't use Elementor, and I just wanted to show that the way you accomplish this and pretty much every builder is modernized, right? Or it's standardized, sorry. Like it pretty much works the same way across every builder. So let's just go in. So we add a container, right? And this container works as a div. And this container has a flex box and it has a grid, right? So now we can add things inside of this container. So if we click the plus icon, we should be able to find a button. And now we have one button. Cool. Let's say we want another button. I actually don't know how to do this in Elementor. Okay, that's cool. Okay, so just Command D. So we have two buttons, right? Cool. Now we go here and we say, hey, I want this. Well, we can justify the content to the center and align it to center. We didn't have to justify it center. And we can remove some gaps. Let's see. Okay, that removes that gap from there. And I guess that controls if we had rows. And now what we can do is we can say flex box content width. Okay. Keep in mind I never used Elementor, but again, here it is, direction. So the direction would be, let's say, horizontal. Boom. Now we have to justify this center. And that is exactly how it should work. It worked the same when we did it in Cadence. It works the same when you do it in Elementor. But now we want to take this this container and we want to add a border to the left of it, kind of like I was doing or I was showing. So we say border. Let's see, where do they have this? Default, let's say border type solid. And then now we just need a border to the left side, right? A border of 2 pixels. Actually, no, sorry. Unlink these. A border of 2 pixels, right? And now we have a border of 2 pixels. If we go to this design, this was kind of like what I was going for in the Divi design. But if we go to Divi, we see where do we place that border, right? Where do we place it? I guess there is an answer of you go like here. Look at this, can't even get to this because I added margin here. I guess we say, oh, what if you do something like this? And then you add the button. And then you could move this up here. Okay, so it's just not gonna work. Yeah, it's really buggy right now. So you would, I guess the idea is you would move it up here, right? So now it lives here, but we'd have to find a way to move this row in here, right? Because right now it can't go in here. And that's the answer, or that's what Divi's basically trying to answer with in this next update. And if they can pull it off, it's going to be pretty big for Divi.